Good morning, friends. Today, in this small session, I would be talking about few aspects or few things regarding your UPSC preparation. These things will help those students who are preparing for upcoming mains examination 2024, and it will also help other aspirants who are preparing notes for 2025 examination or those aspirants who are making notes out of GS and optional subjects. So let us start with previous year's questions. I have time and again emphasized the importance of previous year's questions, and I believe that each one of you is brainstorming previous year's questions. When you brainstorm previous year's questions, you understand about the demands of this examination. For example, if you look at essay question papers, you understand that there are thematic essays or there are philosophical essays, and there are few topics which are repeated time and again. Even if the sentence changes, the idea or meaning of that sentence in that particular essay remains the same. And when you go through previous year's questions, and even if you practice last 10 years essay papers, you can comfortably write any essay because the materials and the points or keywords or the ideas which will you go through will really help you in writing any essay. The same is regarding your GS subjects, optional. And if you look at GS 1, 2, 3, and 4, you find many questions which are from particular section, particular area. Let us look at ethics. If you collect all previous year's ethics case studies, you will have around 50-60 case studies. And if you solve those case studies, and even if you don't solve any other institute or any other material, still you will be able to write all case studies in upcoming examination very confidently, because the case studies which are asked in previous year's question include each and every aspect, be it public sector or corporate sector or environment related or biology related or any other area. Case studies are there, and even if you practice those case studies, you will understand that what is the requirement of questions which are asked in GS4. So, having talked about the importance of previous year's questions, you try to note down the keywords which are mentioned there in various questions, and you understand that whatever the questions and whatever the keywords are there and whatever the brainstorm material regarding the previous year's questions you have will certainly help you in writing any unknown, out of blue, or any tricky question. If you look at GS3, you have science and technology, internal security, economics, disaster management, etc. So there are few questions which are repeated again and again. If you look at internal security and the disaster management, when you look at science and technology question, you understand that science and technology questions are very pertinent and current affairs based question. For example, in last 2 years, UPSC asked question on ISRO missions, Chandrayaan 2, and even if they ask the question, if one is reading current affairs, one is in touch with the current happenings, then those aspirants can easily write those questions. Even UPSC asks question on James Webb Space Telescope. So when you read science and technology questions, you understand that you need not prepare anything other than the current affairs for mains examination. Same is for international relations. If you look at GS2 paper, we have international relations. There could be at least two questions pertaining to that particular section in GS2. So all the questions which are there in international relations, those are based upon current affairs and current happenings. So all these trends you will understand only after going through previous year's question. So I would say previous year's questions are of immense importance for any students who is preparing for this year's mains as well as next year's mains. And the importance of syllabus, the syllabus and previous year's questions need to go hand in hand. So if you read syllabus along with previous year's questions, you understand how to prepare notes and which portion of book or which portion of current affair is important for your examination. And once you read syllabus, you should read syllabus in such a way that you remember keywords of the syllabus. So for example, mine optional was sociology, so I used to know each and every keyword which is mentioned in each chapter. So if you read syllabus, try to read GS syllabus very carefully, try to remember ethics syllabus, try to remember optional syllabus, and you also try to remember keywords which are there in the syllabus, because those keywords will not only help you to understand the question, not only help you to read your current affairs or read your static portion, but those keywords will also help you to write your answers. Because if you mention or if you write those keywords in your answers, then your answer will become more relevant, more contextual, and it will try to give the feel that you have not deviated from the topic of the question or from the theme or idea behind the question which is asked in the examination. So syllabus and previous year's questions are two important uh, aspects, two important things in your UPSC mains examination. Now, what is the basic idea behind writing practice and how much answer writing practice you need to do? So, the logic is very simple. You should have writing practice of such quality or quantity which gives you or instill the confidence that you can write paper within given time with optimum quality and also with average above average presentation, because these three things are equally important. You just cannot complete your paper with less than average presentation, or you cannot write irrelevant and just complete the paper within the time. You have to manage your time. At the same time, you have to write quality stuff. You need to address the demand of the question. You also need to justify the idea behind the question. You need to write introduction, body and conclusion, which is very well suited to the idea of the question. And so you should do answer writing practice till you get this confidence that yes, you can complete the paper within given time with optimum quality, and also you are able to maintain the good presentation. So the basic idea behind time management is you have to do writing practice in simulated environment. So you need to join test, or you can practice previous year's questions by your own, or you can also resort to the test series which are available in the market and you can just practice them. But yes, you should have watch by your side. You keep the track of the time and then you write your question papers. You allocate the time to each and every questions, be it 10 markers or 15 markers, or depending upon the marking scheme of your optional, and you keep the track of the time and then you practice it. If you practice it again and again, then you will develop the better understanding about the time management. So it requires the practice and writing the papers in the simulated environment. Next is the revisions. Why revision is important? Because we have heard many a times that with less content, most of the toppers are able to write question answers to the questions very nicely. It's because they have the limited content, but they have more revision and they have more command because of that over the content. So the limited content and repeated revision is key to cover each and every question which is asked in the examination, because that limited content, even if the question is not based upon the content what you have prepared, but if you have good command over the content, that will certainly give you some clue or that will certainly provide you some help in writing the unknown questions or out of the blue question, because you will be able to relate, correlate, and you will be able to write the questions. So in that sense, the limited revision is very important. And when the revision or the faster revision is possible, when you have short crispy notes. So you should make your own notes, or even if you are selecting the notes from the market, you should smartly select the notes which are very small but also consist of all important the areas of that particular subject or the topic. And you should also jot down your own way of effective revision. So what you can do is you can have discussion as a significant part of your revisions or study. You can solve papers based on that, or you can just practice writing based upon the previous year's questions and the questions which are based upon your content. So you have to chalk out your own way of effective revision. Then how to face the unknown or out of blue questions, and how you can do that. You can effectively, so unknown and out of blues question, these questions sometimes can make you fear that you don't know anything about that particular question, and what happens, whatever the temperament is there during the examination, you may lose that. So the simple thing to prepare these kind of questions is try to attempt such a questions before your examination. It means when you write test series, you will come across few questions about which you know nothing. So what you do, you don't skip those questions. You try to write based upon current affairs, based upon whatever notes you have. So you try to attempt those questions. And if you practice attempting these unknown or the questions which are not based upon what you have studied, certainly that thing will give you confidence and you will be able to attempt such questions in your examination. Now, what is the importance of introduction and conclusion? So we know that there are many approaches to start your answers, especially introduction. So you have definition approach, current affairs approach, or data report, right? There are a lot of things. And some of you must be having fodder material, and I was one of them who used to prepare fodder material. So I had the collection of SDGs and various reports and quotes and the definition, etc. And I had collected few facts and various schemes and initiatives of government. So what happens sometimes, we try to write irrelevant because we don't look at the demand of the question. Introduction is such a thing where the examiner will get to know what you have understood about the question. So introduction and conclusion is such a thing where that will give the lasting impact to the examiner. So both things are very important. So while writing data, figures, or reports, you have to keep in mind that you are writing that particular thing very, very contextually. So you work upon your introduction and you try to write introduction very relevant, very suitable, and which address the demand of the question. So never forget, and at the same time you need to collect fodder materials. You can have facts, themes, and initiatives ready so that you can start your introduction without any hesitation and without thinking much, and you can just straight head on. So this is about introduction and conclusion. These things are very important, and most of the time we try to utilize diagrams, we try to utilize examples, but we don't look at their importance from time management point of view, and we don't look at the aspect of conveying more information with the help of the diagrams, flowcharts, or examples, right? Most of the time we use hub and spoke model, and there are a lot of other types of examples of diagrams. So you must go through those diagrams and various kinds of representation of data in your answers. Always remember that wherever there are large or whenever there are number of pages, those can be 3 or 4 in optional. Most of the time we get 4 pages to write. In 15 markers we have 3 pages to write. So what you do is you try to include at least one diagram in those answers, because that will save your time, and you try to present your content in terms of diagram whenever you have a lot of content. So that will good quality content, lot of content, and contextual content. All these three things will add up and will fetch you more marks. So smart use of diagrams is very important. In large number of the questions, if you try to use the diagrams and the flowcharts, and always try to quote the examples. So those examples could be from current affairs, or those examples you might have collected over a period of time after reading the previous year solutions or toppers copies, or you through your own test series you might have collected those. So you try to use examples while justifying or while analyzing or writing any answers to your questions. And one important aspect, time management. Whenever you try to utilize the diagrams or flowcharts, that will certainly help you to save your time. And in addition to previous point, when you try to write answers, you always have the idea of time management and filling the pages at the back of your mind. See, if you try to write your content in 1.5 pages, and if you try to write the same content in 2 pages, second thing will give more good feeling to the examiner as well as to yourself. So that thing is equally important. So length of answers is equally important, but I'm not saying that even if you have addressed the demand of the questions, you should keep on writing. If you have addressed the demand of the question, then you can certainly move on to the next question. But if you address the demand of the question and you write or you complete your answer in 1.5 pages, then instead I would say you write the same content but try to fill the 2 pages, because that will give a more good feel to examiner as well as to you as well. So, and you also try to choose your way of writing the content. Most of the time we see that the question is very tricky and you don't have much content with yourself. So rather than resorting to the point wise manner of answer writing, you can write your answer in paragraph wise. So you can have multiple paragraphs in your answer and you can complete that question. Most of the cases we see that we use paragraphs for ethics answer as well, and that is one thing you need to choose smartly. You can also write in point wise manner, and you can also write in diagram wise matter, or in diagram format. So it depends upon whether you have the content, it depends upon whether you have the time, and it also depends on how much or how many pages you need to fill in. So you need to take a smart decision, and these things matters a lot. Now when you are preparing for mains examination after prelims result, so what we try to do is we keep on preparing for GS, we make notes for optional, even we practice essays, and there are a lot of value added materials, mains 365s and notes, etc. But during that period we don't focus upon whatever the content we have studied for prelims. So I would advise you at least revise once, because lot of content which you prepare for prelims will be directly helpful for your mains examination. You look at GS1, there is history, there is geography, right? Even in GS2 there is a polity. So these, even in economics, UPSC nowadays ask question on static portion as well. So whatever you have studied, even art and culture, you find there are a lot of questions on art and culture aspect in your mains examination. So it is better you revise at least once the content or the notes or the subjects which you have read for your prelims preparation, and we tend to ignore those things. But I would say you revise the content which you have prepared for prelims once. Now when you practice answer writing, what should be your mindset, right? Most of the time we read question, but it is equally important that you divide the question into different segment. How many parts are there in the question? For example, in 10 markers you can make 2 parts. Most of the questions in 15 markers you have three. Last two means you, if you see at science and technology questions, those questions are based upon current affairs. So James Webb Space Telescope and Chandrayaan mission, in that there were a lot of sub questions were there. So you need to figure out how many parts will be there in the given question, and in how many parts you need to write answers to these questions. So every time you have question, divide that into different segment or different divisions. So it could be 2 parts or 3 parts, and accordingly you try to represent the content and you address the demand of the question. So there would be question like challenges, and then the same questions may ask you about way forward or solutions. So you need to divide main body in 2 parts: first problems and then second solution, right? And in solution you can represent by diagrams or example or etc., or schemes names, etc. So always think about the question, read it very carefully, and divide that particular question in different parts, and then you try to address the demand of each and every part of that particular question. You will try to focus upon the keyword which are mentioned there in the question, because most of the time these keywords will help you to write your answers, and try to replicate those keywords in your answers. Then it will give feel to the examiner that yes, you are addressing the demand and you are writing your answer contextually. Try to write headings, and if one heading per part is there, then that will certainly give the good presentation feel. So these are some of the things. There are a lot of things regarding this, but yes, this is the idea I want to give you about the question reading and dividing into different parts and focusing upon the keyword. Sometimes the keyword will help you to start your answer, because you can just start your introduction by defining that particular keyword, or you can use those keywords in your headings, and these headings could be given to the different part of the question, and then you can answer these questions. So this is very important. Now the basic rule is these 3 things are very important. I mean, all essay, all 4GS and optional are equally important, but yes, you should not forget about these 3 triads which can fit you and which can actually play a role in your selection. So your optional subject, ethics and essay. Ethics and essay, with less effort you can score good marks in this 2 subject, ethics and essay. So you need not to forget these 2 topics. So you prepare those 2 topics very well. You have your own notes, because in ethics you can just refer to any notes which is available in the market, or you can just refer to the previous year's questions, syllabus and the notes, and based upon these 3 you can prepare your notes in 10-15 days also, and you can just practice them. So these 3 things very important for your selection. So this is the basic rule, I would say, for preparing for mains, because there is no limit for GS, right? Because you can just keep on preparing for GS, but if you prepare enough material on essay, ethics, and you have your optional ready, then that can certainly make you be in the game. Now last, I would like to talk about the importance of short notes, right? And we have already talked about this, because short notes make your revision very effective, and you can get command and the mastery over your content, and that sometimes gives you confidence. Yes, you know something about this topic, and even if there is an unknown question, you can attempt that question. And when you have your notes ready, and when there is a question, you can just write within lesser time, and that remaining time you can utilize for other questions, and that saves your time. So the short notes will also give you confidence, and it is an effective way to revise your content. And once you have your short notes, then you can revise those short notes repeatedly, and that actually helps you in your examination. Current affairs is important for all topics, but these are some of the example I would like to talk. I talked about science and technology. During mains, only significant current happenings in science and technology domain, space domain, are asked in the examination. even in international relations, if you look at the trends, only current affairs important event, so it can be about Middle East or Ukraine Russia war, or Israel Gaza Hamas Israel Hamas war. So these are the questions which are asked in examination. So current affairs is important. In polity, you see a lot of questions in polity are based upon the current political developments or happenings, or Supreme Court judgments, or if any law is enacted by the parliament. So questions pertaining to polity, you will find number of questions based upon current affairs. And it is not only limited to GS and your these topics, but questions are asked in your optional subjects. So in sociology, political science, and IR, and in other optional subjects, you will find question on current affairs. And even there are lot of topics in GS3. If you look at disaster management, internal security, so you will find questions on current affairs. So you cannot ignore current affairs. Current affairs preparation is must for mains examination, and you should at least read the current affairs for 3 months during prelims and mains examination phase. As I already talked about the importance of previous year's questions, and here we comes at essay. If you look at previous year's essay, if you refer to last 8 to 9 years essays, and even if you prepare and brainstorm on those topics, that will also suffice you to write any essay which comes, because once you brainstorm it, you understand that there are few essays which are have same themes, and there were essays, philosophical essays, and last year we did not see any philosophical essay, but prior to that, for last 7 to 8 years, there were philosophical essays. One section was based upon philosophical essays, and once you prepare 20-25 topics of the philosophical essays, you will certainly write any philosophical essay which is there, and rest we have thematic essays. So essay papers, so you should read all essay questions which are there. You try to brainstorm, you try to make short notes for all essay topics which have been asked by UPSC in last 7 to 8 years, and that will certainly help you. So essay fodder material you need to prepare. Already talked about it. All keywords which are not only mentioned in the syllabus, but all keywords which are there in your notes should be highlighted, and you should try to remember all the keywords which are mentioned not only in notes but also in syllabus. So for example, let's talk about sociology. We know that there is a class in itself, right? And there are historical materialism, mode of production, right? There are a lot of keywords in Karl Marx chapter, right? So Marxist sociology. So you need to understand that your answer is based upon your keywords. And when you are writing a sentence, and if there is important keyword which is actually which reflects the meaning and understanding of the content, then that certainly helps you. So when you write keywords, when you underline keywords in your answers, then that will help you to fetch more marks. So you need to read and remember keywords not only of your syllabus but also of the content. So whatever the chapters are there, in those chapters there would be few definitions or few diagrams or examples and few points. So in all those content, you try to highlight and remember the keywords, and you try to replicate those keywords or try to write those keywords in your answers, and that is equally important. Now, what is the advanced approach to questions? We know that there are a lot of toppers who have fixed format predefined earlier in their mind, and about the approach to any particular question. For example, if question is there, then I'll try to write the introduction, conclusion. In body, I will try to write headings, and I will divide a particular question into 2 or 3 parts. If there is a 15 marker, I will try to divide that particular question into 3 parts. I'll try to put in one diagram, map, or any flow chart, and then I'll complete. So you already have your material, because you see 50 to 60% portion you already prepared for mains, right? And you would find a lot of questions directly from those material. So in these kind of questions, you already know what to write in introduction, what to write in conclusion, because you have ready-made introduction, ready-made conclusion. You know the types of the diagrams or the headings. So I call this as advanced approach to questions, because you already have everything. You have content, you have approach to write, you have different segment in your answers, and this framework is already you have practiced in your test series. So during examination, it's just the execution, what you do will matter. So whenever there is a question, you try to figure out, okay, I will choose this pattern to write this question. So you have this thing earlier already in your mind, and you just proceed and just execute it. You need not to think a lot. So you can approach these kind of questions, and it is very easy for those questions which are already regarding those questions. You already have some content or material, and you have already faced those questions in your test series or previous questions. In those questions, you can have this approach. And this is important. Discuss, right? So it's kind of open-ended kind of thing is there. Analyze, you need to carefully go into the different intricacies. So there could be the impact or positives or negatives, right? Explain also, you need to explain that particular things, and you can explain with the help of various examples or illustrative diagrams or current happenings or current affairs example. So there is critical analyze, right? So you need to bring in both aspects, etc. So yes, these things are important, but hardly I would say there are 2 to 3 types of approaches are required to write any mains answer. So right, so one thing you have to always remember is you always look at the demand of the question. So what is the theme and the idea behind the question, you will be able to write it. So normally 2 to 3 types approaches are there. First, they will ask you to write your answers in open format. Matlab, there is no end. You can try to bring in any aspect, but that has some link to the question. Second, they will try to ask you to explain that particular thing. So you have to particularly focus upon the demand of the question. That particular keyword could be there, or that particular meaning of that question would be there. You need to focus more upon that. And then there would be questions where you would be asked to focus upon both the aspect. And in some cases, they will try to give you try to ask about the examples to exemplify that particular thing. This is very important, because what happens when we study a lot, if you have